What would your life look like if fear never spoke again? Not whispered, not warned, not ruled, just silence. Imagine it. Imagine a morning where the first thought in your mind isn't doubt. It isn't worry. It isn't the weight of what ifs pressing against your chest before your feet even touch the ground. No inner critic asking, "Are you sure?" No trembling question marks trailing your every decision. Just clarity, just fire, just you, unchained. If fear had no voice, how many dreams would no longer be delayed? How many doors would you stop knocking on and start kicking wide open? How many times would you speak, create, move, leap without that invisible hand always pulling you back? Because here's the raw truth. Most people aren't held back by failure. They're not paralyzed by pain. They're caged by fear. Fear of judgment, fear of falling short, fear of outshining the old version of themselves that they've been clinging to for safety. And the worst part, they think it's just who they are. But it's not. It's just a story, a pattern, a lie. Fear has been narrating your life long enough. It's been sitting in the director's chair, writing scripts for your silence, for your retreat, for your smallness. And you've been acting it out, thinking this is just how it goes. But it's not. You were not born to bow to fear. You were built to rise through it, to recognize it not as truth, but as a trigger, a signal that you're standing on the edge of growth. Let's call it out. Fear is not your protector. It's a thief. And it's been stealing from you for years. Not all at once. No, fear is too clever for that. It steals in small doses. A quiet no when your heart wanted to say yes. A hesitation when the window of opportunity was wide open. A delay when the moment needed speed. It robs you in whispers, not in screams. And then one day you look back and wonder where all the time went. What would your life look like if you stopped obeying fear? Fear speaks your language. It knows your insecurities, your doubts, your buried wounds. It doesn't show up with fangs. It wears your voice. That's what makes it dangerous. Because when it speaks, it sounds like reason, like logic, like caution, but it's not wisdom, it's weakness wearing a mask. And unless you learn to recognize it, you will keep confusing it for truth. You can't negotiate with fear. You can't reason with it. Because the moment you start a conversation, you've already lost. Fear doesn't want dialogue, it wants dominance. And every second you spend thinking about it, measuring it, waiting for it to fade, you're feeding it. This is the shift. Fear doesn't die with time. It dies with action, movement. That's the weapon. Not confidence, not certainty, not perfect timing, just motion. Fear hates momentum. It can't keep up when you start. The longer you wait, the stronger it gets. The quicker you move, the faster it fades. You've been told to wait until you're ready. That's the greatest lie. There is no ready. There's only now. There's only this moment and what you do with it. Every second you delay is another second fear gets to grow roots. And once it plants itself, it doesn't let go easily. But here's the good news. The same way fear grows by repetition, so does power. So does belief. So does courage. You don't need to feel brave to act brave. You just need to act. And when you do, the brain learns, the body adapts, confidence builds, not before, but after. This is your edge. This is where the old self dies and the new one begins, not in theory, not in dreaming, but in doing. The world doesn't remember the ones who thought about moving. It remembers the ones who moved, the ones who shook while speaking but spoke anyway. The ones who doubted every step but took them anyway. The ones who had every reason to hide and chose instead to stand. That's courage. That's freedom. That's the path. Not away from fear, but through it. You think you're waiting for fear to vanish, but fear is waiting for you to stop moving. And every time you hesitate, you're confirming its power. Every time you act, especially while afraid, you tear its mask off. and you see it for what it really is, nothing more than a shadow. Don't let a shadow rule your life. Fear thrives in silence. It multiplies in delay. It grows in the mind that overthinks and overplans but never pulls the trigger. The longer you sit in thought, the more fear creeps in and convinces you you're not ready, that you need one more course, one more call, one more sign before you leap. But the truth is, the sign is already here. You're breathing, you're alive, you have the vision. That's the sign. Now move. There is no perfect moment, only powerful decisions. And the most powerful decision you can make is this: I will not be ruled by fear. Not now, not anymore. You don't rise by waiting. You rise by walking. You rise by making your nervous system familiar with the uncomfortable. You rise by acting again and again until the action becomes natural and the fear becomes irrelevant. You have to stop asking fear for permission to live the life you were built for. You have to stop asking fear for permission to live the life you were built for. Because here's the truth. Fear will never give it. It doesn't want you to grow. It doesn't want you to rise. It wants you safe, predictable, and forgettable. It wants you small. It wants you hidden. It wants you average. But you weren't created for average. You weren't made to live behind a curtain of hesitation. There's nothing noble about shrinking so others can stay comfortable. There's nothing admirable about letting your light dim just so no one gets blinded. Fear has convinced millions to stay quiet, play it safe, and die with their greatness still locked inside them. But not you, not anymore. Because the moment you decide to stop obeying fear, the entire game changes. The moment you take one step forward, even a trembling one, you sever its grip on your destiny. And let's be honest, fear never really goes away, but you get louder. You get stronger. You become too grounded to be shaken. You stop reacting and start commanding. And eventually, fear stops trying to run the show because you've proven again and again that you're the one in charge now. Fear's only power is repetition. It tells the same story over and over until it sounds like truth, but repetition works both ways. If fear can shape your identity, then so can courage. You can choose a new story, one where your voice isn't silenced, one where your feet move before your doubts get a vote, one where action speaks louder than anxiety. You do not have to feel brave to act brave. That's not just a line, it's a way of life. Real warriors move with their hearts pounding, their hands shaking, their minds racing, but they move anyway. That's the difference. The brave don't wait to be unafraid. They get intimate with the fear, and then they walk through it anyway. It's not about eliminating fear. It's about becoming so consistent, so intentional, so prepared that fear has no place left to breathe. You suffocate it with your habits, with your morning routine, with your physical discipline, with the way you show up every single day, because that's how the fearless are made. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows, when no one is watching. Discipline is your sword. It's the tool that slays the dragon. Fear becomes in your mind, and when motivation fades, because it always does, discipline holds the line. It's not flashy, it's not emotional, it's mechanical, relentless. And it's what builds the version of you fear can no longer recognize. So you wake up before your mind has time to talk you out of it. You speak affirmations that sound bold until they sound true. You move your body, even when your energy says no. You do the uncomfortable thing, the call, the conversation, the pitch, even when your stomach flips. And every single time you do, the identity of fear loses ground. This is not about pretending fear doesn't exist. It's about building a life where it can't rule. Let it sit in the passenger seat. Let it scream in the background. But don't you dare hand it the wheel. You drive. You decide. You dictate the direction. Not fear, not doubt, not the opinions of people who've never dared anything for themselves. And here's the part most people never prepare for. When you start to rise, not everyone will rise with you. The moment you begin to silence fear, you begin to awaken something in others. And not all of them will like it. Some will be inspired, but some will be exposed. Your boldness will reflect their hesitation. Your power will mirror their avoidance. And instead of clapping for you, they'll try to pull you back. They'll say, "You've changed." Yes, you have. That's the point. They'll say, "Who do you think you are?" Say it proudly. "I am the one who no longer asks fear for permission." You see, fear doesn't just live inside you, it lives around you, in the conversations that keep you small, in the people who depend on your old identity to feel safe with their own, in the patterns that reward comfort and punish courage. But here's the deal. You don't owe anyone your stagnation. You don't need to dim your light so someone else doesn't feel insecure in your glow. You will outgrow people. That is the price of personal evolution. That is the tax on becoming who you were meant to be. But what you gain in return? Alignment, clarity, freedom is worth every goodbye. Your tribe will get smaller, but it will get sharper. The ones who remain will be the ones building their own fire. And together, you'll rise. Because energy is contagious, and fear is a virus. Surround yourself with people who live in it, and it will infect you. But place yourself among the disciplined, the courageous, the driven, and you'll catch fire. This is where the separation happens. Not in talent, not in luck, in choice, in repetition, in the brutal, beautiful decision to act again and again until courage becomes your default and fear becomes an echo you barely hear anymore. You don't get to be legendary by accident. You don't get to build legacy by being liked. You earn greatness through daily silent rebellion against every excuse that ever asked you to stay the same. So here's the call. Stop waiting. Stop stalling. Stop rehearsing a life of safety while your purpose withers in the background. Start building the version of you who doesn't flinch anymore. Start writing the story where fear no longer narrates your lines. And don't look back. Don't check if the old version of you is still waiting. She's gone. He's gone. That self was a chapter, not the whole book. What comes next is yours to write. What comes next is yours to write. But you can't write a new chapter with the pen still in fear's hand. You've got to snatch it back. With action, with clarity, with defiance. Because the longer you let fear hold the pen, the more your story sounds like survival instead of success. And survival was never the goal, not for you. You were built to thrive, to expand, to shatter ceilings and rewrite expectations. And it doesn't take a miracle, it takes decision. One decision to no longer let fear decide for you. One decision to move forward even when your mind screams, retreat. One decision to finally break the cycle and stop waiting to feel different before becoming different. Because the truth, you become confident by doing the things that scare you, not by sitting around hoping to someday feel ready. Ready is a trap. Readiness is a myth sold to the masses to keep them passive. The greats, the legends, they weren't ready when they started. They were terrified, but they moved anyway. They leapt anyway. They opened their mouth, stepped into the room, launched the product, signed the lease, all with fear sitting heavy in their chest. But they didn't let it stop them. And that's the difference. They didn't wait for a perfect moment. They made a decision, and the moment became perfect because they stepped into it. Courage is not a feeling, it's a muscle. And like any muscle, it grows through resistance, through sweat, through repetition. The more you train it, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, fear shows up and you just smile. Not because it's gone, but because it no longer controls you. You've trained for this, you've earned this. And if fear is still whispering, good. That means you're doing something worth your growth. Fear is often the compass, not away from what you should avoid, but toward what you must face. It's the alarm system that tells you this matters. It's the tension in your chest that signals this is the edge of the old you. And the moment you step through it, you step into expansion. But expansion has a cost. The price is discomfort. You can't grow and stay comfortable at the same time. You can't rise and stay hidden. You can't lead and still try to make everyone like you. Choose. Choose discomfort and power, or choose comfort and regret. One of them will define your legacy. Because let me say this clearly, no one remembers the person who played it safe. No one builds monuments to the ones who never tried. History is carved by those who stood in the storm and said, "I'm still coming." And storms will come. You'll feel resistance. You'll face setbacks. You'll have days when the doubt is louder than your drive. But those days don't define you. Your decisions do. Will you act when it's hard? Will you stand when you're tired? Will you speak when your voice shakes? That's where your character is forged. That's where leaders are born. That's where fear gets buried, not with bravado, but with consistency. Because fear doesn't die in a moment. It dies in 1,000 daily deaths. Every time you move anyway, every time you speak anyway, every time you show up, push through, follow through. Fear weakens. Not all at once, not dramatically, quietly, slowly, like a shadow that fades at sunrise. And eventually something strange happens. Fear still visits, but it doesn't stay. It knocks, but you don't answer. It whispers, but you don't listen. Because your identity has changed. You're no longer someone who reacts. You're someone who decides. This is where power lives, not in the absence of fear, but in the presence of discipline. Discipline is what turns dreams into routines and routines into results. It's what makes your vision non-negotiable. It doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't ask for permission. It just shows up, does the work, and builds the future. And if you build it long enough, something wild happens. The impossible starts to feel inevitable. Because the body adapts, the mind adapts, the identity adapts. You're no longer the one who wonders what if. You're the one who knows what happens when. When I move, the room changes. When I speak, my voice lands. When I act, doors open, not because I'm lucky, because I've trained for this, because I've bled for this, because I've been scared and I kept going. This is what the fearless understand. It's not about eliminating fear. It's about starving it, about refusing to feed it your time, your focus, your breath. Every second you give fear is a second you delay your greatness. And some of you, you've been delaying for years. You've been telling yourself you're not ready, that you need more time, more money, more confidence, more approval. But here's the thing, the version of you that has everything you're asking for, she's on the other side of action. He's on the other side of now. You're not waiting on anything. You're delaying your own becoming. You are not scared of failure. You are scared of what success might demand from you. You are afraid of how bright your light might shine once you stop hiding it. But here's the deeper truth. That light was never just for you. Your courage becomes a torch. It becomes a signal fire. Every time you rise, someone else watching starts to believe they can rise too. Every time you speak, someone else finds the strength to use their voice. Every time you refuse to be ruled by fear, you show someone else how to do the same. And that's the real legacy, not what you built, but who you liberated. This world doesn't need more comfortable people. It needs lit souls, people on fire, people who've burned away the hesitation and chosen to live fully, relentlessly, unapologetically. And it starts with you, not next week, not next year, now. Yeah. That word alone can divide two lives, the one ruled by fear and the one claimed by fire. All that stands between the version of you that hesitates and the version of you that dominates is one decision. One moment, one breath where you say, I'm done waiting. I'm done shrinking. I'm done pretending I don't feel the pull of something greater. Because deep down, you know, you've always known. You weren't made to tiptoe through life hoping nothing goes wrong. You were made to command your space, to enter rooms like you belong, because you do, to pursue visions so bold they make your old self tremble. You were designed for pressure. You were born for the climb. And fear? Fear is just the ghost of who you used to be, trying to haunt the future you're building now. So stop apologizing for your ambition. Stop explaining your boldness. Stop softening your voice so others feel more comfortable in their hesitation. You're not here to make everyone okay with your growth. You're here to become undeniable. And that means disappointing some people. That means letting go of relationships rooted in your former limitations. That means walking away from circles that only celebrate the version of you that stayed small. Let them go. Let them misunderstand you. Let them gossip. Let them question. Because their comfort zone is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to your calling, to the fire in your chest, to the work that won't let you sleep, to the dreams that still visit you even when you're exhausted and distracted and afraid. That's your loyalty. That's your tribe. The vision that won't die, no matter how much fear tries to kill it. But here's the part no one talks about. Sometimes the fear isn't of failing. It's of succeeding, of becoming, of rising, of actually stepping into your power and realizing you're the one you've been waiting for. And with that realization comes responsibility. With that power comes weight. You can't unsee your potential once you've tasted it, and that scares people. It scares you. Confusion. Because success means letting go of the old stories, the old identities, the ones that made you feel safe, the ones that gave you an excuse to stay average, the ones that let you hide. Success means exposure. It means showing up fully, fiercely, publicly. It means being seen, and the fear of being seen is just the fear of being judged, misunderstood, rejected. But listen closely. Being misunderstood is the tax you pay for being original. Being judged is the tax you pay for leading. Being rejected is the tax you pay for no longer begging for permission. You don't owe the world your silence. You owe it your power, your clarity, your contribution, your full self, unfiltered, unmuted, unleashed. And when you show up like that, something shifts. You stop asking, what if I fail, and start asking, what if I never try? Because that's the real tragedy. Not the fall, not the mistake, but the life that was never lived because fear ran the show. The legacy that was never written because comfort felt easier. The relationships never deepened, the ideas never launched, the change never made. All because someone chose hesitation over hunger. But you're not that someone. You're the fire starter. Is the one who doesn't wait for permission, who doesn't beg for applause, who doesn't shrink when fear shows up, but steps forward anyway. Because by now you've learned the secret. Fear will always visit, but you decide whether it stays. You decide whether it becomes a stop sign or a starting line, whether it becomes the wall that blocks you or the weight that builds you. You get to assign the meaning. You get to frame the narrative. And that means you're not powerless. You're in charge. You're the author of every thought, the director of every move, the architect of every outcome. So build rituals that anchor you in strength. Speak words that reinforce your identity. Move daily, even when you don't feel like it. Say the hard thing. Do the scary thing. Walk toward the fire until the fire bows to you. And if fear shows up tomorrow, let it. Let it rise. Let it shake your hands. Let it knot your stomach. But move anyway. Decide anyway. Show up anyway. That's how greatness is built, not in ease, but in motion. Fear hates momentum. It thrives in stillness. It grows in silence. It feeds on your delay. So don't give it the space. Starve it with forward motion. Smother it with relentless discipline. Let your consistency become the hammer that breaks its grip. And here's the reward: freedom. Not freedom from challenge, not freedom from risk, but freedom from being ruled by a voice that never had the right to lead. Imagine waking up and knowing fear doesn't own you, doubt doesn't decide for you. Other people's opinions don't define you. That's real wealth. That's the treasure on the other side of the battle. Because the real fight has never been external. It's not the world that limits you. It's not the market. It's not your family. It's not your past. It's the war between the version of you that obeys fear and the version of you that conquers it. And every decision you make moves you toward one or the other. Every day you're either reinforcing fear's narrative or rewriting your own. There is no neutral. You're always building something. The question is, what? So build truth, build power, build fire, and let every action remind fear that you no longer serve it. Let your habits echo the reality that you are done bowing. Let your presence announce that the days of smallness are over. And when someone asks, what changed? You'll look them in the eye and say, I stopped letting fear speak for me. I stopped letting fear speak for me. And from that moment forward, everything began to change. Because when fear no longer gets the mic, truth begins to rise, and truth doesn't stutter, it doesn't shrink, it doesn't apologize, it walks in with clarity. It speaks with thunder. It commands the room, not with volume, but with conviction. And conviction is the language of the free. When you strip fear of its voice, you start hearing the sound of your real life, the rhythm you were born to walk to, the calling you were born to answer, the echo of your potential no longer buried beneath doubt. It's been waiting, patiently, quietly, watching you settle, watching you dim, watching you walk circles in the safe zones you've outgrown. But not anymore. This is where the climb begins. Not with grand gestures, but with ruthless consistency, with morning discipline, with nights of no compromise, with silence when fear begs you to scream, with action when your mind begs you to wait. This is the path of the powerful. Not because they are louder, but because they are clearer. And clarity is earned. You don't wake up with it, you sharpen it. In solitude, in stillness, in repetition. You build clarity like a weapon, a blade you carry into battle every single day. And when life throws storms, not if, but when, clarity keeps you walking. It cuts through the noise, the fear, the outside opinions, the chaos. Because now you no longer ask the storm for permission. You become the storm. Understand this, every step into fear is a step away from regret. And the life you'll be proud of? It isn't built in theory. It isn't found in comfort. It's forged in fire. In the lonely moments where no one claps. In the small decisions no one sees. In the invisible choices where fear is screaming and you move anyway. This is not about becoming fearless. It's about becoming fear-trained. So let fear rise, let it flood your chest, let it shake your bones, and then let it watch as you act anyway. Because when you stop retreating, when you stop flinching, when you stop bowing, fear has no home left in you. And the people around you, they'll notice. Some will follow, some will flee, and some will fight you, not because you're wrong, but because your growth reveals their stagnation. But that's not your weight to carry. Your job is not to make the world comfortable with your strength. Your job is to lead, to blaze the trail, to make the path so loud, so bold, so undeniable that even the timid begin to believe again. That's what power does. It awakens, it ignites, it multiplies. And the more you walk in that power, the more impossible it becomes to go back to who you were. You'll try. You'll revisit old habits, old voices, old identities. But they won't fit. They'll feel foreign. Because once you've tasted truth, smallness becomes unbearable. And that's how you know you've changed. You no longer crave approval. You crave alignment. You no longer seek safety. You seek growth. You no longer worship comfort. You worship calling. And that shift, that's your evolution. That's the version of you the world has been waiting for. But there's one more truth, one final truth, and it's this. If you don't kill fear, fear will kill your future. Maybe not all at once, maybe not with fire and fury, but slowly, quietly, with hesitation, with overthinking, with the subtle betrayal of postponing everything that matters until someday. And someday is the deadliest word in the language of greatness. Someday says, not yet. Someday says, maybe later. Someday says, when I'm ready. But someday never comes. Only now does. And you've waited long enough. So this is it. The moment where you stand up, where you speak louder than fear, where you move with the kind of power that makes the past irrelevant. You don't need a sign. You don't need more time. You need to move. Your voice is needed. Your vision is needed. Your energy, undiluted by fear, is needed. Not just for you, but for those watching you. For the ones silently begging for proof that it's possible. For the ones who forgot how to fight. For the younger version of you who never saw someone rise like this. Be that person. Be the example, the interruption, the one who stopped the cycle and rewrote the script. And when fear shows up tomorrow, don't fight it with noise, fight it with results. Fight it with your schedule, with your habits, with the power of showing up relentlessly. Fear can't hold on to someone who doesn't stop. That's the final law. Discipline defeats doubt. Movement destroys fear. Vision silences the noise. So write the book, launch the brand, change the city, break the mold, say the thing, cut the cord, burn the bridges that lead back to smallness, burn the excuses, burn the plan B. Because when your back is to the wall and you still move forward, that's when your legacy begins. You are not weak for feeling fear. You are weak only when you obey it. So rise, straighten your spine, clench your fists, lift your chin, and tell fear one final time, you don't speak for me anymore. This is your life, your fire, your time, and it will not be lived in silence. Go live like fear never had a voice. Go lead like you were born to. Because you were